There we go. All right, so let's start by looking first at this presentation, which is the original press release, and then I want to talk about why we write releases, but let's kind of walk through some of the things about this assignment. Okay, so you've got on Canvas, and I'm going to email to everyone, the next assignment, which is you're going to take a fact sheet, which we'll look at, and you will write a press release of 400 words or less, which includes the About section. We'll get to that in a minute, with a headline of 70 characters or less. And it's going to be about Calle Ocho Books and Press, which don't go bother looking it up. It doesn't exist. It should, but it doesn't. All right. So, and after the About section, these are the elements. You're going to add your contact information, name, phone with area code, and email, just as if you were sending out a press release and you were the person to be contacted. Then you're going to have media outlets. You're going to have 4 people that you would send this release to based on the subject matter. And we'll get into the subject matter in just a second. You'll have the reporter or editor's name, the name of the media organization, which may be a newspaper, a TV station, a blog, whatever you think, and some way to contact them. Email, phone number, Instagram account, Twitter account, whatever it is that you'd find a way to reach that individual. So the media list, as I mentioned, that's who they must be. Who they can't be is an advertising director or a book publisher or something like that. We're not looking for business people, we're looking for media people. Just know that the Miami Herald and Louisville Herald, same newspaper. They're one source. Sun Sentinel, El Sentinel, SouthFlorida.com, all owned by the same company. So we wouldn't count those as 3, we would count those as 1. So before you begin writing anything in the area of public relations, in particular a press release, you ask yourself, who is your audience? Who is it that you're writing for? Who should you have in mind that's going to receive this and that you want to have read it and then react or respond in some way? Secondly, you have to ask yourself, well, what makes this press release newsworthy? Or as one of my colleagues says, who cares? And that's a really good question to ask yourself when you're typing this. Ask yourself, okay, I'm writing this sentence, it sounds good, but this news that I'm sharing, who cares? And then lastly here, how does the announcement show that your client is first, best, or different? How does it show that they're first to do something, they're best at what they do, or they're different from the other people who may be doing similar things? All right. And also when you're doing the release, and you can see there's a lot to keep in your head, think about why it's called Calle Ocho Books and Press. So is everyone familiar with Calle Ocho? If not, you can always look it up on Wikipedia. There's a fairly good explanation of it. All right. So, is everyone hearing me okay? I'm not seeing any typing. I just want to make sure that everything's working correctly. So just give me like a yes or a typing or whatever. You're both typing. Okay, that's good. Okay, just want to make sure. Like I said, I don't trust Adobe Connect, so I have no idea whether, I know this is not being recorded, but I'm recording it, and so I'll take care of it that way. So you always put the news in the headline. That may be as far as people get. You put the news in the first sentence. There are people who work in television who tell me when they get a press release, they decide on whether or not they're going to cover it or whether or not it's newsworthy by the first sentence. They rarely read any further than that. They might read the whole paragraph before they make a decision on yes, this is news we're interested, or no, and delete. So when you're writing, eliminate the repetition. If you told them once, you don't have to say anything again. Keep everything short. Why? Think about where people get their news these days. They read it on their phones. And whether you're pitching to a reporter, an editor, or a blogger, it's a very good chance that the first place they're going to see it is on their phone. A big fat paragraph is hard to read. A short paragraph, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, is easy to read. Quotes go in separate paragraphs. Watch your capitalization and remember your lettering. Remember it's Calle, Ocho, Books and Press, and that and is the ampersand here on the screen. It's not the word AND. Okay, AP style, I want you to follow that, and you want to keep your about section short. All right, so the first draft is due next Monday at midnight. You'll have one revision, and then you'll do one revision and you'll get graded, just like the cover letter assignment. So that's pretty much going to cover it. You want to always call it Calle Ocho, just to keep everything straight, because you've got cover letter, Calle Ocho, and you've got more assignments coming, and you want to know which is which. So if you just send something in that says like assignment 1 or just assignment, then no one will be able to keep track of it. Certainly not me. All right, so like I say, you'll get edited, and Yessie, you know all about that from the editing that I did of your cover letter. And we, just like we do with the cover letter, we use edit 1. When I send it back, you send it back as edit 2. All right, and of course, just email me. Here's the things you need to know. Here's the background to it. So, 2 FIU graduates have opened up an online bookstore called Calle Ocho Books and Press. And you can see there's like a title to it. It says for fans of South Florida and Cuban literature. So it's just as you can see, there are all these bullet points. It's Miami themed. It's for people who enjoy fiction and literature about Cuba and South Florida. It's called CalleOchoBooks.com, which doesn't really exist. The only thing that's real in all of this is that Michelle Donovan and Melissa Montero are former students of mine. So they are real people. And they're both FIU graduates. I believe they're also Miami natives. The rest of the information describes what's in Calle Ocho Books and Press. So as we scroll down, we see it has titles from Spanish language publishers. It's got a blog and a Facebook page. It's got reading tools. It's got videos. It streams the Latin sounds of WMIA Miami, and so forth. And in your information sheet, you've got 2 sets of quotes. So you have a lot of information there, and you've got an about section with a whole bunch more information, some of which you may decide you'd rather have in the release, because at the end of the day, you want a very short about section. Remember, you only have 400 words, so if you use this whole about section, you're just going to use up half of your release describing what it is, as opposed to telling them what's going on. So the real question here, as we look at this and we say, okay, so let's produce a press release. What's the news here? Is the news that it's a new website? Well, think about it. How many websites go live every day? So clearly that's not it. Is it a fact that it's an online bookstore? Well, what's the biggest online bookstore out there? Amazon. So it's not that it's a website, and it's not that it's an online bookstore. Neither one of these make it first, best, or different. Do either of you have an idea what it might be that makes this press release newsworthy? Okay. Yes, see, that's correct. This is a Miami-themed online bookstore, which makes it different from the general Amazon. If you go into Amazon, it's a huge online warehouse. There are books on everything, cats, dogs, sports, you name it. There are a ton of different kinds of books. This is Miami-themed. So this makes it different from Amazon. Absolutely. Good point. So we have to keep that in mind. All right, so let's elaborate on that. So we know that from, say, the second bullet point, that it's created for readers who enjoy fiction and literature about Cuba and South Florida. So that's very good. Mhm. So that makes it different. So the news is not so much that the website launched, but that people who like fiction and literature about Cuba and South Florida have a place to go. Looking at the bullet points, who else would this appeal to? Remember we talked about think about your audience? So just take a look at these bullet points, which are kind of in the top half of the screen up in this area, and ask yourself, okay, so who else would be an audience for this? Who else would think this is newsworthy? Very good. Spanish language publishers. And along with those publishers would be what other people? Okay, yes, you got it. Also writers. So we have a number of audiences. We have the people who read the books, we have the people who write the books, and we have the people who publish the books. So all three are our audience for this. This is going to help you when you create your media list because you'll be thinking about not just people who write for the readers, but also people who write for publishers and other writers. So very good, very good. You've got this. When you sit down to write, the hard part will be making sure that you're able to put the right kind of information in that first sentence. You don't want to make it 100 words long because no one can read a 100 word sentence. You want to keep it short, but now you know the gist of what it is you want to get across and what it is you're trying to write, the people that you're trying to write to. One of the things that makes this newsworthy is these people now have a place to go, whether they're readers or they want their books to receive publicity. This website is now creating not just a place to go shopping, but a community of shared interests. That's what makes this newsworthy. That's what makes it different from other places. And the fact that it's Miami themed is what makes it first, because this doesn't exist in Miami. It ought to, but it doesn't exist yet. From that, you can start to pull some of the things out of there, out of this first area, the background area, and say to yourself, okay, which one of these is important to put at the beginning? Which one is important to put later? And maybe some of the stuff is really not important at all, or not important enough for the 400 words that you're allotted. So let's take a look at some of the things that we see a little further down. Is it a big deal that you can get things like a Fire or Kindle tablet? Or even further down here, they have things like movies and DVDs and lap desks and bookshelves and desks and pens and pencils. Are these things what makes that site first, best, or different? Are they relevant to the people who are writers, publishers, and readers? If not, you don't want to include them. You don't need that information. You're just going to say, well, it's interesting notes, but you know what? It's not important enough to put in there. What might be important enough is the fact that it publishes on its blog, publishes news about authors, writer conferences for writers, Miami life, culture, dining, arts, entertainment, and so forth and so on. Okay, because that would be of interest to people who are writers, people who are readers who want to meet these authors, and obviously to book publishers. So let's go back up to the beginning. All right. So we know we have to explain at some point the website. explain that it's a website. That'll be in there. What about the website address? Do we need to have it in the first paragraph or not? Very good. All right. Yes, don't always. You can build a hyperlink into your press release. People who receive it may or may not click it, and links may be disabled on whatever email system they use because you can figure you're going to email it. But if we don't put it in the first paragraph, remember what I said at the beginning, people may not read past that. So we need to get it in there, but it's not the first thing we're going to tell them. It's going to be the thing that we include in there and worked into one of the sentences without getting in the way. Right? Because the news isn't, well, hey, calleojobooks.com. No one cares. All right, that's the answer to the question, who cares? They don't care that there's this website or the name of it. What they care is what it does for them. And again, our goal is not to appeal to everybody out there. There are only going to be a certain group of people who are interested in literature about Cuba and South Florida. There will only be a certain set of writers who write that kind of information. And by the way, it's both fiction and nonfiction on this website. You'll see that when you're reading the details. And there'll only be a certain segment of publishers who publish for that audience. Not everyone out there has a set of writers or even one writer who writes for this kind of audience. Okay? And notice that one of the nice things about what they're doing is they state their goal right here, to perpetuate the fine tradition of Cuban literature and provide exposure for a budding crop of South Florida writers. So there's part of their audience also. They're not only the established writers, there are aspiring writers. And as we know today, if you want to publish, all you have to do is upload your book to some website, and they'll either turn it into a Kindle format or a Fire format, or they'll actually print it in with a cover and the whole thing and mail it out for you. Or they'll print 100 for you, and then you can order more on demand. So this gives them a forum to do things so that you can be a self-published author on this site. It's very open and inclusive in terms of what it does. Because look, it's trying to build a community. So think about those things when you're writing the release. So one other thing I want to mention, every press release has to have quotes. So you've got two quotes here. Both of them are from Michelle Donovan. She's obviously one of the co-founders, and she's the business development director. So that's why she's being quoted here. So think about in terms of where the quote should go. It should go near the beginning, not the first paragraph, obviously, but as near to the beginning as you can. And how much of this information do you need? And how do you connect it to what the paragraph is before and what the paragraph is afterward? You figure out those things and you'll be doing very well. So now I've given you kind of a run through. Do you have any questions? Okay, good. Good. Yes, definitely look at the readings. They tell you how to format a press release. The guides that you have in your readings are very good at telling you the mechanics of how to produce a press release. This goes here, this goes here, here's how you start it, here's how you end it, and so forth and so on. Remember that you have all the elements. Not only are you doing the press release, you're going to list yourself as the PR contact, and then you're going to have that short media list of 6 people. at least two of which need to be bloggers. So thinking about who might be your blogger candidate, not by name, but by topic. What would be the kind of things that that person would blog about? And correspondingly, does that person need to be in Miami, or could that person be anywhere as a blogger? And Caroline, you have to speak up every now and then. Yes, he's answering all the questions so far. Hmm. No, I'm not saying no. Don't feel bad about it, Yessie. I'm just saying I want to make sure Caroline is participating as well. No one gets bumped out in a chat. Caroline, you there? Oh, there she is. Okay, good. So here's the question is, okay, for your bloggers, who would be the kind of people who would be interested in blogging about writing a blog post about Calle Books and Press? And does that blogger need to be in South Florida? Very good. No, the blogger does not have to be from South Florida. Remember, one of the things about Calle Books and Press is that it actually, because it's a website, it has an international audience. They could be a blogger from Cuba, they could be from Spain, they could be from Chicago or Los Angeles. The point is that anybody who is interested in this kind of literature, and again, they could be anywhere in the world. Think about how international a city Miami is. As long as they have an interest in South Florida literature, then or Cuban literature, they could be from anywhere. So, do a little bit of Googling to find those bloggers. You should come up with them fairly quickly. And they might not even just be about books, they just may be interested in South Florida in general and the culture of the region, right? This is a fairly straightforward assignment. Do you folks have any other questions or questions on any other topics? I'm happy to answer them. Okay, good. That's fine. Remember, while you're writing, if you come up with things and then you're like, I don't know, I wrote this sentence. What do you think of it? You can send it to me. I'm going to edit the whole release anyway, but you can start with, what do you think of this sentence? What do you think of the way this is or that way? I'm happy to answer those questions at any time. Okay, very good. All right, then that's pretty much it for this week. Uh, we'll get started tomorrow. I think everything is up there. When we're done here, I'll go back into Canvas and I will take a look and make sure all the information you need is posted there. But I think everything is all ready for that assignment, and I believe I have it up there for the next following assignment. But I'll go back and look. In any case, everything you need, the PowerPoint and the uh, background sheet are both up there, and I'll take care of posting the video so that everybody else can see that. You have a good evening and a good rest of the week, and like I say, just email me anytime you have a question.